Hi there, welcome back to Hoopsa. Yesterday I went to Loftus Road with my friend Tom to watch QPR v Sunderland, so as usual I thought I'd do a video with my thoughts on the match. So Tom, who is a Leicester City fan, came along. Here's his prediction for the match before we went.
I think 2-1 QPR. I'm optimistic. I think home luck.
There ain't a lot of that.
I don't know, I beg to differ. I could be really wrong. But I think 2-1. I think 2-1 QPR.
He had no idea what he was getting himself into, did he? I thought he might be a good luck charm after their 4-1 win against Southampton on Friday, but clearly not. So first of all, our opponents, Sunderland, how have they been getting on in the Championship? Well, it's initially a bit of a mixed bag. They had two successive losses on the first two game weeks of the season, losing 2-1 at home to Ipswich and 2-1 away from home at Preston. They also lost to Crewe on penalties in the Carabao Cup, but in the last three games they managed to turn their league form around, with a 2-1 win at home to Rotherham, a 0-0 draw away at Coventry, and a huge home win of 5-0 against Southampton at home. So just as the international break started, they started to rediscover that brilliant form they had last season, of course in time to play QPR. Now they had a very busy summer. The sale of Ross Stewart for around £9 million to Southampton enabled a very busy summer transfer window. There were a lot of incomings, the most notable being Joe Bellingham, of course the brother of Jude, for £1.75 million from Birmingham. A really brilliant addition, and he started really well for them. He scored 2 goals already. They brought another striker, Royce, in for £2.5 million, and also some other smart additions. Bradley Dack, for example, on a free transfer. He's very capable in this league. Most importantly, they kept hold of Jack Clarke, who had an excellent season for them last season. Was light years away from what we saw from him on loan at QPR, which is just typical QPR, to be honest. But despite him hoping for a move, he stuck around and he started the season really well once again. And of course, last season Sunderland made the playoffs after finishing 6th. They lost to Luton in the semis, but a brilliant finish for them, having just come up via the playoffs in the previous season from League One. Tony Mowbray's been a big success for them so far. He's got a 40% win rate, and they've got a young, attacking, exciting side to watch. Now QPR, of course, were coming off of the back of a 2-1 win away at Middlesbrough, which we took into the international break. A deserved 3 points after a couple of improved performances, so something to build on, and really good to take that into a tough home match. We started an unchanged 11, which I was really pleased to see, given that Cook had gone off in the last match with an injury. Obviously nothing too serious as he's back in the side. So looking at the first half, I feel we started fairly well. Sunderland, of course, were dominant in possession and passing from the first whistle, but we coped well, we kept our shape well, we were defending. They had a very early near chance from a Jack Clarke corner. Bellard couldn't quite turn the ball in at the back post, which I do think he probably would have had Begovic beaten if he had. But then on 12 minutes, very much against the run of play, QPR scored. Ball then fell to Sam Field, who was able to head that onto Elias Chair, and he smartly picked out Kenneth Powell on the edge of the box, who reeled off a really nice low shot into the bottom right corner. Great finish, a home goal, very much a rarity these days. 1-0 against a good side until 21 minutes. Ball was in the middle of the pitch. Kakai and Colback were playing a couple of small one-to-ones back and forth to each other as Sunderland started to pressure them. Kakai returned the ball to Colback, but a really lazy mishit pass put the ball behind him, so he had to turn and reach in for it. Joe Bellingham had other ideas and was coming in to take the ball himself, so Jack Colback responded with a really late aggressive challenge and saw a red card for it. Now there's been a lot of talk online about whether or not it was a red card. For me, I think it was, to be honest. It was a pretty late challenge. It's on the back of the leg. You've seen people break their legs like this. And I think ultimately he'd given the ref a decision to make. And it's just a really ill-judged challenge from him, and one that was going to completely change the game. Really disappointing because he's been really good for us so far. Obviously scoring twice in 2 matches and leaving a gaping hole in the middle of the park against a very attacking, possession-based team. For the remainder of the half, we were defending our box. And actually, despite being down to 10 men, I thought we were doing a pretty good job of it. I thought Kenny Powell in particular did a really good job keeping Barr on the right side of him. I was also quite surprised by how well Dazelle was defending. He naturally had to drop further back now that Colback was gone, and he made a few really nice interceptions around the edge of the box and was sort of moving the ball out. Really impressed by him. Obviously he's had a couple of good games, and I thought he did a really good job there. Soon enough though, Sunderland did have the ball in the back of the net. Pritchard had played a long ball onto Joe Bellingham's head, and he nodded it neatly into the net, but the offside flag went up. Pressure was continuing to mount, but we did keep our shape really well, and it didn't really feel like we were down to 10 men. I think a big reason for this is Sunderland weren't really utilising the overload. I think they didn't quite know where the overload should be, and so they were a little bit frustrated trying to work it around the edge of the box. But as with many matches this season, and to be honest, it reminded me a lot of Ipswich at home, with sustained pressure, we eventually crack. And we cracked at the worst time possible. 53 minutes, 8 minutes into added time, Jack Clarke reels off a long-range effort outside the box. Steve Cook tries to head it out and nods it into the back of his own net. Really bad time to concede just before the half. Going into the second half, I personally was quite surprised to see that there were no substitutions made. I think Ainsworth kind of thought, well, we defended quite well until the goal, we'll keep doing what we're doing. But no subs, no tactical changes, and a long half to play against Sunderland, who are going to bring the game to us. And it's exactly what they did. It was pressure from the first whistle, it was one-way traffic, it was chance after chance. Joe Bellingham missed a really close effort at the near post. I found that Sunderland was starting to stretch the pitch a lot wider, their passing was a bit sharper. I mean, it's obvious, right? Tony Mowbray's going to have told him where the overload should be. He's going to say, pass this team to death because it works against QPR. And it was working. Sunderland scored again. A blocked ball from a corner fell down to Pritchard. He played a nice 1-2 with a darting run in. Low through ball into the box. Again, I said this in my last video, those low through balls, we've conceded so many of them this season. Pritchard got his shot off, Begovic got down to it, but Ballo followed up and scored the rebound. At this point, 2-1. The game's done. Ainsworth quickly responded with a sub, putting on Dykes for Paul Smith. And once I get it, we're chasing a goal. Paul Smith was really struggling with defending Jack Clark. It just didn't make sense. It's so bizarre to make that change when we go a goal down. And Dykes coming on didn't really make a difference for 3 reasons. One is that the red card had meant that our midfield was completely nullified. We were just doing long hoofs up the pitch, settles back in the Sunderland defence, and then they would attack again, and it was just rinse and repeat. No midfield at all. The second reason is Begovic is seemingly incapable of playing long balls out. He put 3 or 4 completely out of the pitch from goal kicks, which is just so poor. And then the third reason is Armstrong and Dykes couldn't trap any of these long balls because the ones that did stay on the pitch, they weren't able to bring it down. They'd been crowded out by the Sunderland defence. And even if they had, there was no support around them to capitalise on it. The other issue is that Paul Smith coming off now meant that we'd swapped to a back 4. So Kakai had switched to right back. And it made us worse because he didn't have any more joy against Clark. Actually, he left us quite exposed when he bombed down the wing, tried to take a player on by running straight into him, and then Sunderland attacked in the gap that he left. On 68 minutes, Ainsworth decided to make a triple substitution, and at this point I knew he just really lost the plot, to be honest. Chair for Willett, Collie for Sinclair, who looked really pissed off coming off, which can't blame him, to be honest, and Cook for Jake Clark-Salter. And it just made no difference because we just couldn't get out of our box. On 81 minutes, a third goal for Sunderland from Barr. Belter of a finish from him, to be fair, from a cross. And then a few more efforts right after that. Begovic made a couple of good saves, but the game was done. Now, you might think I'm being quite harsh in my assessment of this game, especially because of the red card. That changed everything. Can't really expect to win with 10 men. Sunderland are always going to bring the game to us. My issue is that we just seem tactically inept, even with 10 men. And I say tactically inept, we just didn't change anything until 2-1. Ainsworth had a couple of options, really, and he probably would have got stick regardless of what he chose to do. But that's the problem, he just didn't choose to do anything. So he could have said, protect the lead. We're going to take the striker off. We're going to drop another man into midfield. We're just going to crowd them out. He could have said 1 goal's not going to be enough and subbed on Dykes earlier and actually tried to get another goal. But he did neither. He just hoped for the best, hoped that we continued to defend well as we had in the first half, which we know that we fade as games go on. It just seems there was no plan B. Appreciate these weren't normal circumstances with having your midfielder sent off in 20 minutes, but we just went back to this long ball football, which actually just added more pressure onto us. It was just hit it over the top, Sunderland collect it, attack us again, attack us again. After the Watford game, there was talks of this sort of player mutiny. You know, they talked to Ainsworth, they said they don't want to play hoofball anymore, they want to play it on the floor. And so we started to adapt a little bit and incorporate a bit of passing into our game. This just completely vanished for some reason for this match. Again, I know that we're down to 10 men, but players like Chair just not getting on the ball enough. You see what happens when he does get on the ball, he sets up the goal. I just think it was a really naive response from Ainsworth. A point against this team would have been fantastic. It was always going to be a hard game even with 11 men. It just felt like we threw the game completely. And that's now 1 home win in nearly a year, which is just ridiculous. Swansea coming up on Tuesday. They lost 2-0 to Cardiff. So far we've beaten the 2 teams below us that we've played, Cardiff and Borough. So now Swansea is must win on Tuesday, to be honest. Ainsworth's going to have a real think about how he approaches this game, how he adapts the system. Obviously, with the 5 at the back, he'd found something that was getting the best out of the players. He's got to find other ways that we can adapt and get the best out of these players, get us attacking again, and have some adaptability, because we're going to get found out very quickly if we only have one style of play. Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. If you have any thoughts yourself, let me know in the comments. I'll reply to everything, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.